Good morning, doctor. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Good. Okay, so I thought maybe we'd start with just kind of an overview of your practice, and then we'll get into, you just give us the broad range of areas of migraines that you treat, and then let's specifically go into how severe, because I don't think anybody really understands what we're talking about here.
Right,
We're not talking about a headache, Okay. So, all right, doctor. Well, tell us, give us an idea of your practice and why migraine is becoming so prevalent.
Okay, well, first of all, thanks for having me on. I appreciate the opportunity. I'm a neurologist and headache specialist in Fairfield, Connecticut, up the road from New York City, and I direct the Headache Center and clinical research here. So we run a number of different studies, and I was involved in some of the groundbreaking studies for both migraine and for chronic migraine.
When you say migraine, that's a word that's tossed around a lot, but we're talking about something that is extraordinarily severe that can be debilitating in some people.
You're exactly right. It means different things to different people, but as you suggest, this is not a mild headache. These are folks who have moderate to severe throbbing pain with nausea or vomiting, light and sound sensitivity, concentration difficulties, dizziness, occasionally vision trouble or numbness, trouble getting their words out. And it's estimated that about 36 million Americans suffer from this genetic brain disorder. And the disability, that is the missing time from work, from school, really from life, can be profound.
You mentioned the time, the debilitating nature, the life-changing nature of this. How long can a migraine last in some patients?
The definition of migraine is about 4 hours to about 3 days, but there are always exceptions to the rules, and I've had patients who have had 5-6 day headaches, 10-day headaches. So, you could imagine those who have frequent headaches, particularly those who have chronic migraine, which is the worst of the worst condition, cycling in and out of this, 15, 18, 25 days a month. Really, it puts your life on hold.
Why is it so severe in some people? Is there a broader explanation for this?
Well, it's a medical condition like heart disease and diabetes. It's again genetically inherited. It's a disruption of brain chemistry leading to inflammation. Now, there are some triggers. Being female is a trigger. 3 times more women have migraine than men. But many lifestyle choices contribute to how many headaches one gets per month. So, for example, not getting enough sleep, being too stressed, and stress is high in many of us these days. Poor diet choices, not drinking enough water, alcohol can be a trigger, not exercising. So, there are some changes that we can make and that our patients can make even before they come in to see the headache specialist. But, a good headache specialist will go over all of these lifestyle modifications trying to drive down the number and severity of headaches per month.
And so you mentioned diet. How big a factor is that?
Well, it can be really pretty big. I've got a lot of folks who eat, for example, processed meats and hot dogs and Chinese food which may have MSG in it. There are certain nuts, aged cheeses. Red wine is another big trigger. So, we hand out a sheet to our patients that's got the common bad guys, and we have them do a bit of an elimination diet. Every now and then we find somebody who's sensitive to gluten or dairy, and that's their trigger. So it's a little process of elimination, but it can be very helpful to go on a very healthy fruit and vegetable diet with, decreased amounts of processed junk food.
You mentioned a list. Is there some place that we can go to see that so that people can see the kind of the low-hanging fruit, the easiest solutions for what sounds like just a dreadful situation?
Yeah, there's a number of useful websites. The American Headache Society, and if you Google American Headache Society, has a nice website for patients that lists a lot of the food triggers and the sleep and the stress and the depression and that sort of thing. There's another website called Botox Chronic Migraine, and that's for those folks who have 15 or more headache days per month That's a useful website that talks about not only migraine, but the worst case, the half a month spent in this condition. And it's got some useful information and even a zip code you can enter, your own zip code, and find a specialist in your area to help you out.
You know, you mentioned Botox. Botox really does have tremendous application. For some people, it is a big part of the answer, isn't it?
You know, when it came out, it was a real game changer for us. Botox is actually the only medication approved for the treatment of chronic migraine. These are the 15 or more headache days per month patients. And, you know, it was about a decade's worth of research, some of which I was involved with, trying to find the right dose, the right patient group, where to actually inject this medication around the head and neck. And in October 2010, we were thrilled when the FDA put their stamp of approval on it and said Botox is now approved in adults for the treatment of chronic migraine.
And for some people, for those that it does help, some it has no effect on, correct? But others, for the people that it does help, it really seems to have a fairly dramatic impact.
Right. There is a minority of patients that they just plain old don't respond to Botox. I mean, you can pick any medication and you'll find a subset of people who just don't get anything out of it. What I tell my patients is, boy, when it works, you're going to be happy because it's a medicine that's injected with a very small needle in different areas around the head, neck, and shoulders, but it's only 4 times a year or about every 12 weeks. In the meantime, it drives down their headaches, an average of decreasing 9 headache days per month or about 40 headache hours, and you don't have to take a pill every day. So compliance is virtually 100%. You get it in, and then you're kind of on autopilot for 12 weeks.
It's interesting. It's like a new generation of doctors. What I hear you saying is that you're not telling people to run to the medicine chest for the first order. It's more of a holistic view. The medicine chest, in some cases, is part of the reason that people go into this sort of chronic stage when they're going into and out of withdrawal from some of these drugs, some of them just over-the-counter drugs.
Mark, that's a very sophisticated statement, I must tell you. Oftentimes, patients don't know that they are causing themselves trouble. If you take too many over-the-counter medications, we're talking the Motrins and Aleve and certainly the Excedrins of the world, what that can do is actually cause a withdrawal phenomena that actually leads to headache. So these medications, when used infrequently, can be helpful, but when used frequently, actually cause migraine. And it can take somebody who's having infrequent headaches and drive them over that 15 headache days per month number, in which they'll now meet the definition for chronic migraine. And it's interesting that of that chronic migraine group, about 80% of folks who have chronic migraine don't even know they have it. They haven't been diagnosed yet.
And speaking of diagnosis, I think the bad news for people that are suffering from migraine, occasional migraine, and maybe in that tipping point of chronic migraine, this is a cycle that can be established early on in life that becomes more and more difficult to break out of, isn't it?
And again, you said a mouthful, because pain leads to more pain. And I tell my patients that every day that they have a migraine is a day that the brain gets better at. It actually learns to give them the next day's headache more efficiently. So just like we learn how to ride a bike or play the piano, the brain can't distinguish between good learning and bad learning. And if you keep firing migraine after migraine, the brain gets awfully good at doing that. So, well, certainly the main reason we want to knock out these headaches is because we want to take care of our patients and give them their quality of life back. But certainly a big secondary goal is to look forward 5 years or 10 years and say, if we don't handle this now, their brain is going to be hardwired into an everyday migraine phase.
It sounds like then parents, teachers, people who come in contact with younger people on a regular basis, this is something that they shouldn't write off as just another headache, because there's a pattern that could be established that could change the course of someone's life.
Absolutely. I think the trajectory of one's life could potentially be altered if early on you interrupted the cycle with a very holistic approach, as you said, the diet, the sleep, the exercise, and if needed, medications and the proper medications, and so they don't ever chronify, they don't ever cross that 15 headache day per month mark and get into a really bad cycle.
Well, this holistic approach, some of these things sound I guess Americans are so tuned in to go to the medicine cabinet that some of these holistic approaches, like meditation, trying to break that stress cycle, sound as if, well, that sounds nice, but how are you going to fix this thing? They have a dramatic impact on people that could be suffering with this for the rest of their lives otherwise.
That's why, I mean, we're the largest headache center in the state, and I tell you, in addition to the doctor, we have 2 counselor therapists, we have 3 PhD neuropsychologists, we do biofeedback and acupuncture, and we discuss diet, and we discuss exercise, and, you know, we have physical therapy. So, yeah, we really take a whole person approach, and we actually engage the patient and say it's not you're coming here and we fix you, it's we're actually partners in trying to get you better.
Biofeedback, tell us a little bit about that, because that's really the keys to the city in some way. That is what determines how this whole cycle starts and how deeply it's going to go.
Right, and not just for chronic migraine and other headaches, but for a number of different pain conditions. You can actually train the brain by hooking up electrodes and, you know, learning how to control muscle contractility or the temperature of your body or your pulse. And you can, as you drive that down, there's a tremendous relaxation in the brain, and patients can get a real handle on any number of different pain disorders.
Doctors, thank you so much for joining us this morning. We do appreciate your help, and thank you for all of your information.
Mark, thanks very much for having me. Thanks very much for having me.